The Ohio State of Mind podcast, hosted by Josh Keeley and Chris Ryan.
Your number one stop for all Buckeye football news.
What's in the box?
A boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat.
This is such a crock of shit. Pooh-ah!
The Ohio State of Mind podcast. Turn it up.
Oh, and welcome back to the Ohio State of Mind podcast. It is actually Sunday, the 11th of May. When you're watching this, we're coming at you straight from the future. As always, I am Chris. To my right is my main man since, let's go ahead and call it, the fourth grade? Josh Keeley, how are you?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. Yeah, sounds right. Fourth grade sounds right. I'm finally back down in the basement in my dojo. Okay.
Yes.
I'm so excited for this episode. I know our listeners will be too. I know we got 5 devoted dudes. I know they're going to get on. They're going to be very excited to hear this. We're finally doing the recruiting class recap. We're starting out with the 2022 recruiting year. And, bro, I went down. My kid's not sleeping because he's teething. So I've been watching nothing but, old highlight tapes of these guys, old games. I watched the Ohio State Northwestern 2020 BigTen championship game. I went back down my basement, found old I told you the Street and Smith magazine with Justin Fields and Ian Book on the cover, the Lindy's, the Athlon. I'm listening to old Ohio State podcasts where they're talking about these recruiting classes. I'm stoked, dude. I love walking down memory lane, bro, and I'm very excited to talk. Some of these guys, I know they're recent, but some of these guys everybody just forgets about. Their careers are over now, so it's fun to talk about. It's fun to talk about.
No, their Buckeye careers are over. We've been sitting here and saying that we're going to get to this for 40 and twain now, but we're going to actually get to these, breaking down these recruiting classes. We're going to start from the recruiting class of 2020 because that now we have everybody that's in that class is no longer with the Ohio State University. We're going to go ahead and go through each and every one of this 26 class recruiting class. And then at the same time, before we get to that, we're going to give them points. But before we get to that, we're going to get to some Buckeye news. Josh, what do you got?
It should be noted as well that when Chris and I first talked about this, we were like, oh, well, these guys are going to be done playing football. Turns out that 3 of them are still hanging on their third school. I for one was shocked. A couple of these guys I knew were entered the transfer portal, but you know how that goes. I was shocked that a couple of them were hanging on again, man. I kind of lost track of a few of these guys, so it was pretty fun, pretty interesting. I also, before we get into the Ohio State recruiting class, a lot of people are doing shows like this where they're recapping the entirety of the class. I saw a lot of Alabama fans reacting to that 2020 recruiting class because those guys are gone, and that was the best class in the nation at that time. But They're not recapping. It's important to know the landscape of what was happening in college football. So I did put together a list of the top 10 recruiting prospects from that year in the nation, as well as the top 5 Ohio prospects, right? Because that's a big complaint that everybody has is, we don't get Ohio guys. We don't get Ohio guys. And what's cool about the list that I put together, too, is when you go online at 24/7 Sports, and they do a really good job of trying to unedit stuff, but they revise their list, right? And after the signing day, they do one more update. Well, this list was compiled by 24/7 Sports, published in Athlons before that final date, right? So, and that's where you see most of you guys getting bumped because of their sign with Alabama, Ohio State, whatever. So hopefully that gives it a little bit more unique perspective, is that I tried to grab things that were actually in print. And also I wrote down a couple little segments, little recruiting recaps from those magazines, so we can kind of just try to gauge before we dive in and judge them. We can gauge kind of hey, what were the expectations? What was everybody saying first? But that's it. I'm just very excited about it, dude. I think
I'm glad you went and did the extra legwork, because we're going to talk about some recruits that the entire world was set on fire that the Buckeyes signed, and to look at the perspective from the outside looking in, that maybe some of these young athletes that signed to play for the Ohio State Buckeyes were ready to like I said, light the world on fire, and maybe that wasn't the case, or maybe these young 3-star prospects who end up getting taken in the NFL draft this past season. So I think it's awesome. I'm glad you did the extra legwork, and I think putting this recruiting class in perspective from 2020 is going to make it more fun and probably have a nice real laugh with it, I think.
Yeah. And hopefully, we'll keep this thing going. And the older those classes get, the more chaotic they should be. Of course, that might not be true. We kind of talked about that briefly last night with our phone conversation, where it's like, man, the transfer portal kind of made things wonky and COVID and yada yada yada. But we'll see.
I think we're going to look at this class, and it's going to be the first class that we see some weirdness, because we're talking about, obviously we've got a mass exodus of transfers. We've also got some individuals who medically retired. We have some individuals who phantomly medically retired. We've got a recruit that decided he just wanted to be a finance bro and just quit.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of fun, and I think that I know you and I are going to have fun. I know the listeners are going to have fun when they listen to this tomorrow. And before we get to this recruiting class news, though, we are going to talk about some news that we missed in the last week. Last week, we obviously had national champion Julian Golding Jackson on. He was, telling us how he's big time now, tripping off his dad when he gives a phone call, showing off the ring. But an absolute awesome guy. I'd love to have him on again. I can almost look into the crystal ball and say we're going to have him on again.
Oh, 100%. It took him. My favorite part, I went back and watched that podcast. My favorite part was 30 seconds in. He went like this for no reason, just to show his bracelet.
He gave you the my fellow Americans.
Yeah.
Show it off there. But to get to some Buckeye news we've missed over the last two shows, though, we've got to talk about some of the comments made by Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles did in fact come forward. Hey, he said, apparently we've been, this dirty, ugly relationship. What was put in the media, what was Ohio State said, like he said, she said, a lot of hearsay. Jim Knowles came out on a podcast. He said that, that Ohio State in fact did offer him an extension to become the nation's highest paid DC, which was a reported salary of somewhere around $2.7 million. And of course, ultimately he accepted an offer from the Nittany Lions, which ended up being 3.1. The word on the curb is he was, during the national championship title run or the playoffs, he was taking phone calls. He was putting feelers out there. Knowles and his fiance apparently did fly to Oklahoma to weigh those options while they were still undecided. And then, of course, apparently, again, this is all hearsay, or this is essentially from one source, Jim Knowles himself is, they caught wind of, hey, here's the extension. You haven't said yes. You haven't said no. You've taken trips. And they said, hey, you know what? By the way, come January 26th, we have the celebration at the shoe. Don't show. And here's a quote directly from Jim Knowles. Maybe I'll take less because Ohio State's a great place, Knowles said. But then they asked me not to come to the parade. So then you're like, okay, honestly, the writing's on the wall. Now it's become something, it's always something on the outside world, but now it's become something here too. I've made a decision, but you feel like I wouldn't have had to say it if I didn't want to, but you're just like, okay, now this has gotten awkward. Mind you, he's now gone to Penn State, which he is a native of Pennsylvania. Josh, you done any digging or delving or reading into any of the things that Jim Knowles said over the last week?
So you broke the news to me, Chris. A couple days ago, you called. You and I spoke on the phone, and you said, "Well, you didn't hear about the Jim Knowles conference?" And I immediately got on my phone, started Googling the next time I was taking a dump, and then I thought to myself, "I don't need to read this." First of all, I this is the most he's ever said in any press conference since he's been at Ohio State, right? Second of all, we've talked to enough dudes inside the room to know how he was acting after the Oregon game, okay? Yes. And then 3, we know what kind of relationship he has with these players because how many entered the portal? How many left to go to Penn State?
Yeah.
0, right? Exactly. I mean, and I think that he had a good – I guess I framed that harshly. He had a good relationship with the players. Everybody we've talked to said that Jim Knowles was a great coach, a great guy, yada, yada, yada. It's just things were falling apart. It was one of those things where a mutual breakup, if you will. Does that make sense?
I would see that.
Yeah, the only writing on the wall that you and I have basically confirmed with multiple people is that Ryan Day, Larry Johnson, and him were not seeing eye to eye, and Jim Knowles picked up the shortest stick, the straw. So that's how it went. He was shopping around. Yeah, I mean, I like Jim Knowles. I think Jim Knowles is a great defensive coordinator. I did not like the hire. They won a national championship with him. So I have to – it's kind of like our conversation about the Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock thing. You and I had a conversation on the phone. Even though I think Denzel Burke is a better player, what am I supposed to do? The other guy got drafted before him. That's how Jim Knowles' career was for me. There was a lot of ups and a lot of downs. But at the end of the day, they won a national championship, and he was a part of that staff. So, I'm not going to talk negatively about him, but I don't believe anything he's saying. I just simply don't. It is what, or maybe I don't. They were maybe some of it. It's probably 50-50, right? The truth lies somewhere in the middle. They were done with him too. I'm sure that they did treat him poorly, but I'm sure he was very. We've seen him. We've seen how he acts. This is the most he's ever spoken. Like,
it is the most outspoken he has been. I hate to take away from the topic here. Is that a Super Bowl 55 hat you're wearing?
Yeah, you like that? Just got it for $1.
Love it. No, I mean, hey, guess what? At the end of the day, Jim Knowles, he'll be coming into Ohio Stadium in November, and we're gonna let it all play out on the field, and we'll see, how this defensive guru stands in the horseshoe.
Yeah. I agree. I thought it was an odd hire for Penn. I thought it was a good hire for Penn State, but odd in the fact that that's like the first thing out of his mouth is, it takes a couple of years to get my really complicated intelligence system down. So
Just
it's like,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's the guy. That's a great impression of every press conference we've ever seen Jim Knowles in. Now all of a sudden he's talking in complete sentences.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's a multifaceted level marketing. No, hardly. So Jim Knowles, he's no longer on the defensive side of the ball for Ohio State, but Ohio State did add a piece to that defensive side in Bo Atkinson. Josh, are you excited about Bo Atkinson coming up from Salem, North Carolina to Columbus?
I am very excited for what we have. I'm very excited for Caden Curry. I'm very excited for Edric Houston. I'm very excited for Kenyatta Jackson. I was satisfied at the edge position, as I was very satisfied with the pass rushers. A guy of Atkinson's talent, he started last year. This is not a scrub. This is somebody who started. This is somebody who has, Power 5, Power 4, Power 2, whatever you call it, experience. So yeah, it's a great addition. I don't think people need to realize this is not Josh Simmons. This is not Caleb Downs. I don't know what kind of transfer to compare it to. Maybe Tanner McAllister. He might be above Tanner McAllister. By the time Tanner McAllister got here, he was pretty much old. It's like his 5th year, and he was kind of a rotational guy. Bo's got a couple of years of he's got a couple of years left, so maybe it's slightly above that. But yeah, don't expect him to come in here and be the next coming. I would be shocked if he started, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, he as you said, he's got 2 years of eligibility left. He does join where he joins Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Caden Curry on Larry Johnson's defensive line. Also another incoming transfer, Idaho State, Logan George with those 24 tackles, 19.5 for a loss. He comes in as well. This is Ohio State's 2nd defensive end and the 7th overall portal addition this offseason. I like the size 6'6", 265. I think, hey, regardless of what if you, I don't think he's going to light the world on fire, but I don't think he's meant to light the world on fire. Neither is Logan George. I feel these are, hey, we live in a world where you have to rotate out that defensive line. And when you're rotating some of these defensive linemen out and you bring in some pretty stellar, I wouldn't say great, I wouldn't say elite, but these really good defensive linemen, I mean, it's a good problem to have. Agreed wholeheartedly. And do you take any you put any weight on that Bill Belichick comes to North Carolina and there's a mass exodus to transfer players?
Yeah, that's going to happen every time. I don't think that's anything against Bill Belichick. I think that that's the world we live in, right? The guy who recruited Bo is probably not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's an indictment of Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick also brought in like 50 transfers. I think 20. Yeah. I think half of them were lacrosse players, but he's bringing in his own guys too. So maybe Bo saw the writing on the wall.
A couple Kroger baggers and some guys that used to work in a Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how Bill Belichick is.
Yeah.
Maybe Bill got staring at his hot girlfriend.
She is now banned from all UNC facilities. You saw that, yeah?
They came out on X. I think the university came out and said, no, that's a rumor. That's not true.
Really?
I thought so. I thought they said that's a rumor. We got this under control, yada, yada, yada. I did see that she's got her. She's 7th. She's in 7th place right now. Some kind of pageant she's in. But enough news about Bill Belichick's girlfriend.
Okay, absolutely. We'll get on to another young blood, if you would. We've got Caden Dixon Wyatt, another committed 2 weeks ago. Teammate of Chris Henry Jr. He's going to be on that next draft class. I love the quote from him saying, "Hey, if you want to be an elite receiver, you go to Ohio State." That's what he said. Hey, and also, 6'2", 180, 50 catches last year on that same team. Like I said, with Chris Henry Jr., he's got another year of high school to go. I think he showed me a video of just some young kids being young, cringy kids. But let's be real, the talent is there. Keep beefing up the receiving room. That's what we do year in, year out. Brian Hartline does it better than anyone else. What's your thought about the commit?
No, it's big. I think it was a surprise to a lot of people, right? I think that a lot, we actually talked about on this podcast a couple weeks ago where there was kind of a every day or every week we had a Chris Henry Jr. update because he didn't shut off his recruitment. He was traveling to Oregon. Oregon was making this huge pitch for him, NIL cash, yada, yada, yada. I think that this kid's very talented. Everybody's very excited, but it's also kind of in trenches that Chris Henry's probably pretty much locked in, right? And this kid also shut down his recruitment, I believe. I think Chris Henry Jr. did too the other day as well.
As he signed, he locked down as well.
Yeah, so they told these coaches to fuck off. So that's kind of a big deal. Chris Henry Jr. I'm not going to say here and act like I've seen a lot of this kid's tape. I've seen enough of Chris Henry Jr.'s tape to know he is a special talent. He is a dog. Yes. So they're gonna keep reloading. I think that's great. It's a big addition. It's on the West Coast too. It's on the West Coast too. So they're really trying to lay the groundwork there. Chris Henry Jr. doesn't exactly count as a West Coast. I know he's going to when it's all said and done. But remember, he's an Ohio kid. Moved out there like 2 years ago too. So he was pretty much born and raised in Ohio. Dad played for the Bengals. Yada yada yada. So it's one of those things where I don't know if they should get credit for that. But this 100%. They went in there. They pulled out a bag on the West Coast. So.
Yeah, I am here for it. Let's keep that title of best receiving room in the country intact. And a little bit of lighter news. Hey, we've got Jackson Corville, Ball State kicker, last week as a go ahead and then committed to Ohio State. He has 2 years of eligibility remaining. He was his tenure at Ball State, 26 for 34 field goals in a 2-year stretch, 11 for 13 last season alone. He's 2 for 2 on field goals of 50 yards or more with a career long of 52. He's 54 or 56 on extra points, missing one in each of the first 2 seasons. So he missed one year, one the other. Now, we talked briefly before the show, hey, we both are fans of Jaden Fielding. Yes, Jaden Fielding came out last season and said, hey, I had a hip injury. I mean, we can sit there and pin this Michigan loss on him, but it isn't just on him. The whole damn team.
Not at all.
Back. Every facet of the ball was terrible, and the kid is, sat there and had to take it on the chin. But mind you, let's look at that national championship game and that absolute bounce back that he had during the playoffs. We love Jaden Fielding. So again, this could either push Jaden Fielding for his final season as a Buckeye, or you could look at Jackson Corville taking a red shirt this season and sitting one more year and having some eligibility. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not very under the Ryan Day regime. Kickers have not been a strong suit. Noah Ruggles had a couple pretty notorious botches. We're about to talk about Jake Seibert, who also was not great. Even the punters, Joe McGuire was benched for 6'7" Australian kid that came in that also was not good at all either. So special teams is kind of taking a hit. I think Jaden Fielding is actually the first. Jaden Fielding is really good. I think that Jaden Fielding is really good. He was hurt all last year. I believe him. We saw him at spring practice nail a bunch of 50-yarders in a row when he was warming up. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's a nice kid. He's got his feet on the ground. I think that the sky is the limit with Jaden Fielding kicking wise. I mean, as far as the pantheon of Ohio State kickers go, with such, he's obviously not Mike Nugent, but Vlade Janikiewski and Josh Houston and guys like that. I think that Jaden Fielding is good. I think he really is good. I don't think this kid who missed an extra point last year is going to come in and uptick Fielding. I think this is probably more of a move for the future. Plus, he's a walk-on too. So you got a kicker who started at Ball State. I apologize. Cyber at Northern Illinois, who started at Ball State, and he says, hey, I want to come back home and play at Ohio State. I'll do it for free. Okay. Cool.
No,
You're not going to say no.
I mean, no, you're playing with house money at this time, and you go,
Exactly.
hey, yeah. And I mean, let's be real. Let's say, Jaden feeling that you're coming from that hip injury. Hey, I'm feeling good. Who's to say it's not to be re-aggravated? It's contingency.
That's fair. Parker Lewis is the other one I was thinking of, the transfer from USC who left immediately. We just haven't had great luck with kickers. And I'm not necessarily blaming Ryan. Well, yeah, I guess I am. I am blaming Ryan Day for that. But we had Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel, who were like special teams Nazis, dude. So it's hard. I don't blame him 100% for that. You know what I mean? He's probably
it is. It's definitely a coaching scheme, coaching philosophy shift in the last last 5 years. But it's good to always have that in the pocket. You don't go to war with a knife, but it's nice to have one just in case.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So now, what we've all been waiting for, my friend.
Hold on.
Go.
You guys, you didn't put the San Antonio Holmes news in there? How dare you, bro?
I didn't. But I would love for you to go ahead and cover that. Go ahead, my friend.
San Antonio Holmes is coaching college football, baby, right here in the state of Ohio. He is the wide receivers coach for Central State, which is a Division II school near Cincinnati. Did we ever figure that out? It was near Cincinnati.
I think you said Cincinnati or Dayton, yeah.
Whatever, same area, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, man. That's awesome, dude. He's getting back in the game. Tell me that wouldn't be. Whenever I hear stuff like that, tell me it wouldn't be cool. If 4 years we're seeing San Antonio Holmes on the sidelines of Ohio State helping out Brian Hartline. My God, Super Bowl MVP.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, Josh, I understand you have a little one that hasn't hit one yet, but I really anticipate, this fall that you get down to a game and give us reporting. I mean, let's be real. Get your ass down to a game.
Well, now that I don't work at USA Today, my Saturdays are free, baby. Dude, I don't. That might be a good idea, man. No,
I wouldn't. Why not? I mean, just a little bit of a drive, and then let's go. San Antonio Holmes, get to catch some more football. I love just nipple. I love you. 24 Fiesta Bowl. Okay.
Night at the Roxbury, and I was like, San Antonio.
And there he was. I swear to God. Yes, San Antonio Holmes is staying in Ohio. He is a wide receiver coach. I had no idea. Again, he's a Belle Glades, Florida native.
Yeah, and he went down. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know San Antonio Holmes' life, but I am a bit of a stalker with these guys trying to get their autographs. I got San Antonio Holmes on a Steelers helmet, but that's it. He's kind of an elusive guy because he went to Florida immediately afterwards. This is the guy that everybody that played with him at Ohio State said he would bitch about the weather. He was the first one to whip out the winter coat in like September. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of shocking, but I don't know. Maybe he's been up here for a while. And I just didn't know it.
Hey, I mean, guess what? Well, we're gonna be able to see him in the future, and so that's our news. And like I said, we're gonna get to our recruiting that we've been talking about. And if you go ahead and look to your right, I've got the recruiting class point system. We're gonna cover the 2020 class and start working from there in reverse order. You look at the point scale. Only thing on there missing is third team Big Ten. If you go ahead and put a little bit of context to it, first teamers get 3 points, second team all Big Ten 2, and obviously third team 1. Obviously drafted between the rounds of 1 and 3, you're gonna get 5 points. Drafted between rounds 4 and 7, you're gonna get 2 points. Individual hardware, we're gonna have a little bit of a back and forth to it. What does it mean? We're talking Heisman's, Davey O'Brien's, Doak Walker's, things like that. We'll get there when we get there. We discussed big bowl game hardware. We're talking national champion MVPs, or we're talking Rose Bowl MVPs. That is something where we might differ, but we're all going to come together. But we're going to break down this class and take a trip down memory lane. What do you think, Josh?
No, I think it's great. And some people might be wondering, well, why do you guys care about what round they're drafted in? Shouldn't it be about their production in college? And that's a fair point. But Chris and I wanted to make sure that we accounted for, okay, hey, Ohio State got this guy. Maybe he didn't produce extremely well in college, but they obviously there was something there that maybe they didn't unlock, or maybe he's a late bloomer, and he got drafted this early because of those athletic traits. Yeah. Looking at you, Baron Browning. So we wanted to give you credit for that, because a guy like Baron Browning doesn't deserve to get 0 points. He just simply does not. Just because he lacked the production that we need. And as far as the hardware goes, yeah, Chris bullied me. I didn't want to put hardware in there. I thought it would complicate things, but Chris bullied me into it. Then he bullied me into including bowl hardware. Oh, but now he's opened the door. He's opened the door because when we do a recruiting class with Brendan White, the safety who transferred, he was a Rose Bowl MVP. So
yeah, we're gonna
or Chris opened.
Yes. Okay. Pandora's box is open, but we're going to run with it. And we're going to start, like I said, the 2020 class, we're going to go top to bottom is the way I've presented this. And we're going to start right off the rip. 2020 rankings. I got the first 4 right there as they were ranked coming into college. Josh, you want to start at the top?
Well, first things first, let me give context to the class of 2020, Chris.
Please.
If you don't
Overview.
I want to roll through the top 10 prospects in the country based off the 24/7 Sports ranking at the time of kickoff of the spring game. One was Brian Bressie, the defensive tackle from Clemson. He went in the first round to the Saints recently. That was probably, we can both agree that was probably a home run. I think his sister died, and that's why you saw a lot of lack of production. He was getting double teamed, whatever. Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama, went in the first round of the Panthers, number 1 overall. I think we agree that was probably a home run, Heisman Trophy winner. Number 3 was Julian Fleming. Okay, so we're going to talk about him in a bit. So Ohio State got the number 3 recruit in the entire class. Number 4 is Keely Ringo, cornerback from Georgia, went in the 4th round of the Eagles. I feel like most people would consider him a bust due to lack of production, but he was all right. He was okay. Arik Gilbert, tight end from LSU. He committed to LSU. Now, Arik Gilbert was noted as a freak, the next coming. If you guys remember, he transferred. He was at LSU for a couple of years. Then he went to Georgia for a couple of years. Then I think he transferred back to LSU for a couple of years. I thought he was done. And he's gonna be at Savannah State this next year. So I think he was at Nebraska too. I think he's on his 4th school. I think I messed up one of those. He went to LSU, Georgia, Nebraska, and now he's gonna go to Savannah State. I think is how it worked. Complete bust. Justin, the number 6 prospect was Justin Flo. Linebacker went to Oregon. Most people would consider him a bust. He's played very well last year at Arizona. He'll be starting at Arizona again this year, but he was a bust at Oregon. Number 7 was Miles Murphy, defensive end, went to Clemson. He was a first-round pick. Home run hit. I think we agree on that. Jordan Birch, defensive tackle, committed to South Carolina. He transferred to Oregon, was drafted in the 3rd round this past year. I don't classify him as a bust because he was productive and he just transferred for better opportunity, but whatever. I guess we're not South Carolina fans. Who cares?
He was spotlighted every Oregon game when they look at the defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, I get you.
But you classify it as a bust because that wasn't for South Carolina.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So Paris Johnson Jr. was the number 9 prospect in the entire country with Ohio State. We're going to talk about him. Number 10, DJ Ugalele, quarterback in Clemson, who then transferred to if you remember, took over for Trevor Lawrence for a brief period. There was even some dispute about him and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is hurt. Transferred to Oregon State, was very good after busting out of Clemson. Then Jonathan Smith left to be the head coach of Michigan State. Declined taking him to Michigan State, which should have been our first clue that he was going to be a bust at Florida State, but we kind of knew that anyways. Went to Florida State, absolutely sucked. Then declared for the NFL draft, which he did not get drafted. Okay. No. Shocker. Now, the top 5 prospects in Ohio that year, Paris Johnson Jr. at Ohio State, we talked about that. Darian Henry, defensive tackle, who also committed to Ohio State. We're going to talk about him. Then he transferred to Kentucky. Okay, did nothing, but he was riddled by injuries, and now he's back in the transfer portal. Just committed to Coastal Carolina about 2 weeks ago. Number 3 was Evan Prater, quarterback, who committed to Cincinnati. They moved. He's still there. He moved positions. I think he's playing wide receiver now. That was a guy who was pretty athletic coming out. Michael Drennan, the second, was a running back. Went to Kentucky. Now he's going to be at Toledo. Okay, who is going to be teammates with the number 5th prospect in Ohio that year, Chip Trianum, who committed to Arizona State as a running back, moved to linebacker, then transferred back to Ohio State where he played linebacker, then moved back to running back, then moved to Kentucky. Immediately regretted it because he didn't play worth a shit. Now he's back at Toledo, going to be a teammates with Drennan this past year. So those are the top prospects. I do have some summaries from those preseason magazines we talked about before we moved on. Chris, did you have anything to add, or did any of those names surprise you, or anything you want to add about that list of 15 guys I just named?
We just got news here in the last couple of days. Was it Akron or was it Toledo that is now postseason ineligible because of academic GPA?
No way, dude.
I think it's Akron. No, I think it's Toledo or Akron. One of the two. They are ineligible for the postseason this upcoming year because they have fell beneath the NCAA academic standards for grade point average.
That is so gross. Oh my God, it's Akron.
Akron.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
Zips, not Toledo. Okay.
Joe Moorhead. What the? I thought that was a home run hire, dude.
Yeah.
He has done nothing there. Yeah, the former offensive coordinator at Oregon, who beat Ohio State twice, and he actually coached Ohio State this last time. So I'm shocked by that, but whatever.
No,
You
I don't have
so dumb. You have to be
yeah.
so dumb to flunk out in like as a college football player. You got to be
Dude.
so dumb, dude. I promise you.
It's to barely have a pulse. No, you're going over those top 10. I think we were about 50-50 on that when it comes to the top 10 in the nation of the year of 2020, that recruiting class. And I think that's honestly about average. I would say 50-50 when it comes to these. I think we're going to see trends of it about
that's
average, honestly.
That I will save this, and we'll revert back to it when we do our next one too. And I apologize. I shouldn't call anybody dumb. You have to do. Because I tutored a lot of those guys. It's that you're not dumb. You just don't do anything. You had to go out of your way to not do shit.
It's definitely the effort. No, I think that 5 of the top 10 in the nation being a hit versus a bust. I think it's average because we're talking in 2020 we've got everything at our fingertips and this, that, and all these things that we can overrate, this, that. But I think once we get to some of these earlier years, I think obviously the glaring talent maybe will stand out a little bit more because less distraction. I think that's one take I might take on it. We'll like you said, let's look back on this statement when we get into, let's call it maybe like 10 years of it.
Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, that's good. Are you surprised that I would classify only one of the Ohio guys as a hit? The other 4 are pretty much busts, right?
I'm talking Paris Johnson Jr.
Yeah, he's the only one that was fucking any good.
I would agree.
Do you think we can expect that as well? 1 out of the 5?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. I bet it's higher. I think that you're probably right about the top 10 of the country, 50-50.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be guys that are super athletic that just don't have the want, because you can get by on your talent in high school more so than in college. Of course, you can get by whatever. But I would find Ohio is such a hotbed. I would find it odd if 4 guys suck balls every year. But regardless, before diving in, so this was out of the preseason. This was out of the Athlon Sports 2020 preseason magazine. They note. This is under Julian Fleming. Julian Fleming, one of the nation's top prospects. This was on their names to know. They picked out one guy.
Right.
Julian Fleming, one of the nation's top prospects, wide receiver. Julian Fleming has size, 6'2", 200 pounds, soft hands, and fluid route running ability. He arrives as the Buckeyes try to adjust to life without all-time leading receiver KJ Hill, and he will get an early opportunity to shine. Now, Lindy's noted this was his. There was they listed 10 freshmen to know. Julian Fleming was obviously on the list. We have to add and friends to this entry. While Fleming was the nation's top-rated receiver recruit, the Buckeyes put 3 cherries on top of that sundae with the numbers 5, 10, and 16 wideouts too, because they can. That's why we're going to get into those wide receivers. I had to go back and look them up because I was like, who the fuck else was in this recruiting class? Now, here's another one from Lindy's when they rank out all the top 25 recruiting classes. In his second cycle at the helm, Ryan Day landed the kind of I had to take a screenshot it because I'm blind. Kind of class that will see short-term and long-term dividends. The short-term returns are likely to come from the wide receiver position. This is without a question the best wide receiver class in the country. It features Julian Fleming, the best player at the position of the 2020 class, and in all, it features 4 of the top 16 wide receivers in the nation. 5-star Texas native Jackson Smith-Njigba is polished and ready to roll this fall. G. Scott Jr. is a big-bodied possession target, and Mookie Cooper is a small, speedy slot. The long-term dividends will come at offensive tackle, where Paris Johnson Jr. may not be ready as a true freshman, but as the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, he's got tremendous upside when he is ready. There's also long-term when he's ready. It's all blurry. You got to give me some grace. There's also long-term dividends coming at quarterback. Ohio State landed 2 in Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud. Now, note, Jack Miller came before C.J. Stroud on this list.
Yes.
That comes up a lot, by the way. But we really believe that Stroud is on pace to develop into one of the best in the nation. This is a really good linebacker in a secondary class as well, with players like Court Williams, Cody Simon, Lathan Ransom, and Ryan Watts, who are all talented prospects. Now, They also do their Big Ten rundown by Alan True, who's still there. The Buckeyes signed a class that finished in the top 5 nationally. It is led by outstanding class that has 4 prospects rated as 4-star recruits, including the nation's number 1 player at the position, Julian Fleming. It also includes 2 more 5-stars, an offensive tackle, Paris Johnson, and another receiver in Jackson Smith-Njigba. Quarterback C.J. Stroud was a late addition. Linebacker Cody Simon and cornerback Ryan Watts were talented gets on defense. Okay, likely this is in the Lindy Sports. They're doing the recruiting roundup. This is the likely to be the best NFL player. There are several candidates in Ohio State's class, including number 1 receiver Julian Fleming. But it is offensive tackle Paris Johnson, a very athletic 6'7", 290-pound prospect who looks like the surest bet to be a future high NFL draft choice and franchise left tackle. They kind of tricked you there. They gave you a zigzag, right? Okay, that's one. Biggest miss. The biggest miss of that year. Michigan's class was dealt a blow with quarterback J.D. Johnson. Yada, yada, yada. The Wolverines went after California native C.J. Stroud, but lost to the rival Ohio State, where he is one of the 2 quarterbacks, which I had to go back and look. And that's true. C.J. Stroud was close to going to Michigan before Ohio State kind of swooped in. Now, this is the last one I'll read, then we can move on. Street and Smith has a recruiting report. Okay. The Buckeyes brought in a top 5 class that starts with 4 highly regarded wide receivers, including the nation's top prospect at the position, Julian Fleming, 5-star Paris Johnson Jr. is a franchise type left tackle who leads a strong offensive line class that includes Luke Whippler, one of the safer impact players in the group. Quarterback C.J. Stroud was a good late pickup defensively. New Jersey linebacker Cody Simon and Arizona safety Lathan Ransom show the Buckeyes' ability to recruit coast to coast. Quarterback Ryan Watts has the size and talent to continue Ohio State's strong tradition at that position. That's it. I'm done. But it's interesting to note what names are being said, who stayed out, who stuck, what names are above what names. The Jack Miller thing, that's going to come up later. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Any thoughts before we dive in?
No, it is. It is funny. It's like I said, it's like sitting here and listening to Mel Kiper on draft day. You're sitting and but you gotta watch it real time. You know what I mean? You gotta watch it real time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude.
It's cool to see this retrospect. I think if you haven't put the context together, you could be an absolute world burner, but if you are a recruit, you were recruited by Ohio State and transferred, we are going to give you no points because the Buckeyes brought you in to play for the Buckeyes and you did not play for the Buckeyes. That's obvious with what was described as a generational talent that was Julian Fleming.
Yeah, you want to kick off then with that?
We're going to kick them off.
All right, man. So how do you want to start? You want me to give it? You want to give a summary on his career? I wrote down a brief summary of what happened. Okay, so Julian Fleming,
absolutely.
He was rated as a 5-star 24/7 Sports. Everybody knows he struggled with injuries predominantly throughout his career. His best season was as a junior in 2022. We had 34 receptions for 533 yards and 6 touchdowns. Then he transferred to Penn State. It should be noted that in the 2022 Big Ten championship game, now you guys remember Chris Olave and Jackson Smith-Njigba were out with COVID that game, if I remember right. It was Chris Olave and someone else. Maybe I don't remember. But so the 2 starting receivers that game were Garrett Wilson and Julian Fleming. Which of those 2 receivers led Ohio State in receiving that game? Do you know?
I think it was Julian Fleming. I think it was the game he went off. Yeah.
That is correct. It was Julian Fleming. If you go back, you watch that game, Joel Klatt goes on and on and on about Julian Fleming. And this is kind of where my distrust for the Jeremiah Smith hype started.
Oh, okay.
It was. I was like, man, I remember this shit from Julian Fleming. And they did. Those magazines were right. He got every opportunity. Now, again, you guys know what happened with Julian Fleming. I'm not going to ramble. We want to keep the show relatively short. It should be noted that he was so bumped and bruised and beaten up that he was already released by the Green Bay Packers. He was signed the day after the draft was over by the Green Bay Packers as a priority undrafted free agent and was cut due to not passing the physical because his back, his shoulders, and his hip are destroyed. He had shoulder surgery after his sophomore year at Ohio State, I believe. So this is a dude. I don't know if I would classify him as a bust, but he's definitely a bust. But you want to put him in the what if category. Does that make sense, Chris?
No,
he lacked that top end speed, but there are a lot of things he did really, really well right? He had a couple of nasty drops that year. That year he started, was it last year, 2 years ago? But there's some things he did well. I think he could have been a quality receiver. He was just so beat up. He was so beat up.
He was if he wasn't going to be this world burner in this Ohio State offense because we had so many outside threats. You can look at the NFL draft but he could have been that guy that went ahead, and just plugged up and sat in a lot of zones in the middle of the field and, dinked and dimed and got his fucking his yards, his receptions, what have you. But it just didn't pan out. He was just bumped and bruised, and you can only sit there being bumped and bruised until a absolutely lavish Ohio State Ohio State receiver room comes in and steps up and takes that spot.
Yeah, no, agreed. So we both gave him 0 points. But again, it would be interesting. I wish we could have saw a healthy Julian Fleming.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
That's exactly. I think you put him without question in the what if category. I think your magazine there was dead on with Paris Johnson Jr. He was a long-term guy. He came in for the Buckeyes. He was drafted in the first round, 6th overall. He was a first-team All-American. He was a 2-time All Big Ten selection, first teamer and second team. Ended up giving him 15 points, a 5-star recruit as well.
Yes, we both gave him 15 points. The magazines were wrong because Paris Johnson did play immediately. He played 5 games as a true freshman at guard.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
started the next year every game at guard.
Yeah,
and then obviously he moved to tackle.
Yeah.
His last season in 2022 before he was drafted in the first round. Paris Johnson, one of the best players in Ohio State history, and I think he lived up to that hype.
Yeah, but he's on now the Arizona Cardinals or the Arizona Buckeyes with all those Buckeyes they've put together on that team, especially with all these undrafted free agents from this last draft class as well.
Yes, absolutely. And Jackson Smith and Jigba was the next one. This is one where we kind of disagreed on. I gave him 11 points. You gave him 16 points. I'm going to adjust my spreadsheet here. 5-star recruit. He played in 7 games as a true freshman. I think he had like 10 receptions or so. I think he led all the freshmen in receiving that year. He also played in that Big Ten he was out sick with that Big Ten championship. Whatever.
Yes.
He recorded 15. This is the year. This is the next year he popped off 15 receptions against Nebraska, which was the second most, that was the school record. He also got 240 yards, which was the second most in the school's history, again against Nebraska. And then he also set the FBS Bowl record with 347 yards in the Rose Bowl, right?
Yes, 347. Is
that right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Which led him to the Rose Bowl MVP, which you noted. He also caught 15 receptions that game, which broke I think that put him over the edge. That game put him over the edge against David Boston for the single season receiving yards record. Ohio State was 1,606 yards. And then the next year, everything kind of fell apart. He got hurt after 3 games. His hamstring just never got right. Again, I'm going to edit my little sheet here and give how much I'm giving him 16 points. Is that right?
I've got him for 16. Again, he favored an injury that last year at Ohio State, but ended up still being picked 20th overall in the first round of the Seattle Seahawks. He All-American, and he did make 3rd team All Big Ten. It's crazy to think the year he had and only made 3rd team All Big Ten, but again, it's a tribute to the Ohio State wide receiver room, really.
Yeah, I don't know. It sucks that he didn't. I would have loved to see him that last year, but no one's going to call him a bust. No one's going to argue against his greatness. Again, one of the best to ever do it, ever to wear the scarlet and gray, and it's great that his name's in the record books. The number 4 recruit for Ohio State that year was C.J. Stroud, 5-star quarterback from California. I don't have to.
Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, we don't workaholics reference. We don't really need to even talk about him. I was there for the first play he had. He was wearing number 14 against Michigan State, and he ripped off a 48-yard rushing touchdown. I don't think he attempted a pass that year. I think that was it. I think he just kind of went out for knee. Yeah, that was as a true freshman, and then the rest of the book was written. As a sophomore, he started. He did not have a great game against Oregon, despite throwing for 1 billion yards. He threw missed a lot of high balls. That year was the first year Quinn Ewers was there, Jack Miller was there, Kyle McCord was there. So there was a lot of okay, what's going to happen with this guy? And then Ryan Day did the smart move. Now, they say he had a shoulder injury. That's why he missed the Akron game. But I do believe that was a Ryan Day coaching move where he was like, hey, you got to settle down. You got this. You got to settle down. And then the rest was history. he finished the rest of the next 2 years top 10 in the Heisman voting. I think top 5 in the Heisman voting, right? Both those years.
Yeah. Yep. Top 3 the last season. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote an article that year, the first year he started after the Oregon game, basically wishing and praying that Ryan Day would give. It was actually after the Tulsa game because he had a rough game against Tulsa too, if I remember right.
Yes.
Yes. I was hoping that they would give Quinn Ewers a chance because Quinn Ewers did look electric when he was practicing. But I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad he didn't. And CJ Stroud was one of the best to ever do it. He had 46 points on my board.
Okay.
You had 36?
I had 36. I gave him 5 points for being a first-round draft pick. I gave him my hardware there. He got 15 points, and those are solely because he was Big Ten Freshman of the Year, Big Ten Quarterback of the Year, and Big Time Player of the Year.
Is that right? I gave him 5, 10. I gave him 25 points under hardware, dude.
What were the other 2 you got?
I don't know. I didn't write them down. I just wrote X's. He was Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year twice, Big Ten Quarterback of the Year twice, and Big Ten Freshman of the Year. 5 X's. Yeah.
Okay.
That's 46 points, brother.
There's your 10 points difference. Okay.
Oh, well, there you go. Perfect.
There's our discrepancy. Okay. All right. We're moving on. We got some 4 stars. We're into these 4 stars, my friend. Donovan's favorite coming up.
Well, no, Donovan's favorite back in the day, bro. Back in the day, I need to chill out on that because I feel like I'm starting to hurt his feelings. I'm not making fun. I want to be very clear.
No.
Donovan ever listens to this. I'm not making fun of you, Donovan. Your recruiting acumen is far better than mine. But when you mentioned Julian Fleming being the next Odell Beckham Jr., my dick got so hard that it's a core memory now. So whenever I hear. So I always mention it. But yeah, he was a big Julian Fleming guy. But yeah, G. Scott, we both agreed 0 points. He played a little bit as a freshman. He played in 3 games. Didn't accrue any stats. 2021 is when he got his first reception. He got 5 receptions for 42 yards. Right? Is that right?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yes. And then in 2022, he got his first touchdown against Michigan State.
Yes.
And that's kind of when things were like, okay, is G. Scott finding himself? Is that things are happening? But that was kind of it. He finished 2023 with, that was kind of it. That was the flash in the pan that year. He was very quality. He was okay. I don't think, he's going to be a guy I'm going to have to explain to my child who he is when he goes through our card collection.
Right. No points. Like I said, he didn't light the world on fire. He didn't light the Ohio State, outlook on fire. He was picked up here last week as a undrafted free agent to the New England Patriots. Good on him for getting a chance. Let's be real, because none of us gave him much. I didn't really give him much of a chance at all. I knew he'd be a guy that wouldn't be signed or he wouldn't be drafted as I was.
Yes. Yeah. He deserved to be signed though. Let's dig deeper on this because this is the first prospect. Because Julian Fleming, like I said, we blame a large part of that. We blamed on injuries. G. Scott doesn't have the injury excuse. G. Scott was a tweener. First of all, he came from Washington, where high school football is not great. If that makes sense, so a lot of the top, and this is me. I've talked to an NFL scout about G. Scott, and I talked to a Seahawks scout about G. Scott because G. Scott has, his dad has a radio show there, and G. Scott was the former ball boy for the Seahawks, and the reputation there was like he was always just kind of on the soft side. He was always bigger and faster than the other kids in high school, and he never developed that dog mentality in college, which might be true. I don't know. He was always kind of a tweener, right? He was too slow to play wide receiver, but not physical enough to play tight end.
Funny, he went to high school. He went to high school one town over from Mecca Luca, one town over.
Sometimes you win. Sometimes you're the bug. Sometimes you're the windshield. Mecca Luca was the windshield.
I hear you. And we got Cody Simon. How many points? Let me ask you, Josh. How many points did you give Cody Simon? 15
points. You said
okay.
The MVP scout? Yeah, right. And that what you got?
Okay. Yep. So tell me where you're because I got 13.
You got 13.
I got 13, let's go. Friend.
Let me pull up my list here. I got my little spreadsheet up where your list is. So he's got 2 hardwares, right? Because he's the MVP of 2 games, right?
Yep, got them both. 5 and 5 is 10.
Drafted in the 4th round, right?
Was he drafted in the 4th round?
Cody Simon?
Yeah.
Was he not? I'm
Why
like
do
90% sure he
I think
was.
yeah, I can believe it. I think I just goofed.
Because I thought we both talked about how he was overdrafted.
I think I just might have goofed, my friend. I thought he
Yeah,
went undrafted.
he was a fourth rounder and he was all Big Ten.
There we go. Okay, there's my discrepancy. For some reason I thought he went undrafted. That's on me.
It's a lot of work. Chris. It's a lot. You don't have to. Dude, you're good. You made all the little fancy slides and stuff like that, so you're allowed to make mistakes. I'm the one that's not allowed to make mistakes. So as a freshman, he played on special teams as a contributor. This is another guy that really struggled with injuries early on in his career. 2021, he got 54 tackles. 2022, he played a little bit more, got 32 tackles. 2023 is when he really shined. He had a really good game against Notre Dame. He tackled Sam Hartman on that fourth and whatever it was to end the game. With a 17-14 win. And then he also led the team with 8 tackles against Purdue. So 2023 is really kind of shined. That was when he was rotating in for Steel Chambers, who he was better than Steel Chambers at the time. But again, Cody Simon was riddled by injuries early in his career. And then obviously we know the story in 2024, right?
Yeah.
He had 11 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 tackles against Oregon. And then he had 8 tackles against Notre Dame, and it was defensive MVP of both of those games. So, he's gonna have that like Zach Bourne kind of thing where like people remember him because of that last run. I think that if it wasn't if it wasn't for and Cody Simon's solid, he's way better than Bourne. That was insulting. I guess I should have said he's I don't know, man. He was a very solid player. He was a very solid player, but people are probably going to remember him in the same way they talk about CJ Stroud and all those other guys because of what he did in the playoffs. And I don't know if that's fair either, if that makes sense.
Well, I wouldn't put him in that category. I put him in the category of a sense as he was nothing about Cody Simons jumped off the paper, but he was reliable when he needed to be fucking reliable. When he needed that standstill, he was there.
Yes. And then the next player is one I'm really upset about. This is one I'm glad we got to Luke Whippler. I gave him 3 points. Is that what you gave him?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that bums me out because Luke Whippler, first of all, he played 1 game as a freshman, and then immediately as a sophomore, this is a 4-star recruit, immediately as a sophomore started at center, where he earned honorable mention Big Ten honors. And then the next year, he started again and was all Big Ten first team. And then he left early. So it's like, dude, I don't know why. And he was drafted in the 6th round. He shouldn't have left early. He should have stayed. That guy could have gone down in history as one of the best interior offensive linemen in Ohio State history. But instead, he left too early. There's a lot of guys we're going to say that about when we keep going back. It's the first guy in my core memory remembering a person leaving early and being like, why would they do? I remember asking my dad, like, Dad, why did he do that? Like, I thought that he was so close. It was Derrick Ross, the cornerback, who got drafted in the 2nd round by the Cowboys. Yeah, Luke Whippler's very much like that. They're obviously they play completely different positions. But, dude, if he would have just stayed, we would have been talking about him like we talked about Paris Johnson. It's a damn shame. Yeah. It's a damn shame he got 3 points, dude, because he was good. He was really, really good. This was a home run.
Absolutely.
Right?
No, I thought a good callback with Derrick Ross. You going a little early, then falling to Dallas. In another year would have done him and Luke wonders. Breaking news, real quick: Trey Sermon signs a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Your boy Trey Sermon.
Oh, really? Oh, good for him for still hanging on, dude. Which is funny. 2020 recruiting class transfer portal.
Yes, I wanted to put him in here. I even texted you. I said, "Do we throw Trey Sermon in here?" No,
I thought it would complicate it. We'll mention at the end, but I just thought it would complicate the numbers. You know what I mean? No,
it would have. Ryan Watts, though, one of those standouts that Lindy's had. Ryan Watts.
Yeah, man. He played a little bit as a freshman, got 5 tackles. He played 3 games as a freshman, got 5 tackles. He really shined in 2021. That next year when he got an interception against Rutgers, that's when people were like, "Oh!" I went back and watched that game, and Ryan Watts, the announcers talked about him a lot. Then he got another interception the next week against Maryland. So he was kind of on a roll. That was it. Then he transferred.
Gus Johnson was over the moon. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and this is one that I kind of blame. This is another one where I kind of blame Ryan Day because Ryan Watts was good. Ryan Watts is a very solid player. He went to Texas. He started at Texas as a cornerback. Would end up being a 4th-round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still in the NFL right now. He was a very, very solid player. They were kind of playing games with him. They were playing him at cornerback. Then they moved him to safety. Then they moved him back to cornerback. By the time he got back to cornerback, he was splitting time. This is when the cornerbacks were really, really bad. You were looking at Cam Brown was starting, Sevyn Banks was starting. Both those guys were not good. And then Denzel Burke, who was an athlete, I'm talking 2021 season, right? And Denzel Burke was an athlete. So Ryan Watts is thinking, dude, what the hell's going on? I should be playing over this dude. You're throwing him in there. The reason why am I playing safety? You know what I mean? Like Ryan Watts kind of got jerked around. So I kind of blame Ryan Day for this because Ryan Watts was good enough to stay here, start here, and do some good things. And unfortunately, he just didn't.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Moving forward, our man, Lathan Ransom. Lathan Ransom, 4-star recruit, drafted this past month in the 4th round. And he was also this last season, this national championship season, first team all Big Ten. Lathan Ransom, 5 points for me.
Yep, same. He played 7 games as a freshman, played in every game as a sophomore, had 38 tackles. And then obviously everybody, as a sophomore, people started to know, hey, Rantham's special. And then he snapped his leg in the Rose Bowl. Yes. and then he kind of had to work his way back. But he ended up being a semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, was drafted by the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, man, I 5 points is fair. Lathan Ransom, maybe I'd say he lived up to that 4-star.
Absolutely.
Before they broke his leg, I just think that everybody expected him to be a superstar. And I think he was this past year. Just Caleb Downs kind of overshadowed him. But that's not his fault. That's not his fault at all. That was a good pickup. I'm happy with that.
No, I think Caleb Downs being on the other side gave Lathan Ransom more ability to to showcase his skill set, because I think without one side of the field being locked down with Caleb Downs, I don't think Lathan Ransom might not go 4th round.
I don't know. The thing about Lathan Ransom, I think Lathan Ransom would have gone. I think Lathan Ransom was always going to go where no matter who played on the opposite side of him, because he's just so physical. He's always been physical. He's great downhill. I like Lathan Ransom. He's one of those guys I want to give more points, but the rules are the rules are. That's me being biased. But yeah, I love Lathan Ransom. I really do. I think that it's a shame he broke his leg and it took so long to kind of build that momentum. The number 10th Ohio State recruit was Mookie Cooper. Was rated as a running back from the state of Missouri. Moved to wide receiver when he arrived to Ohio State, played in 1 game, and then he left to go back home to Missouri. Mookie Cooper was a guy also referenced in those preseason magazines, very, very, very shifty kind of guy. He was really small. He was listed at 5'8", and I don't think he was even 5'8". I think his frame was pretty. I think the idea was like, he's 5'8". He can gain some. He can be like a smaller Curtis Samuel. And do some damage that way, be a running back wide receiver mix, and he's going to be built low to the ground and stocky. His frame was already maxed out by the time he got to Ohio State. He started for 7 games the next year at Missouri, and then he just got riddled with injuries. He actually medically retired. So unfortunately, Mookie Cooper gets a big old 0 points. That guy, I just think he was just you can be that size and play. But the idea was like, he's fast enough to where if he gains 15 pounds and he hits. I think that they thought he could be 200 pounds, and that just was never happened. That was just never not for a guy.
I would agree. I saw doing some research last night. A lot of high school scouting reports giving him comps to Curtis Samuel, actually.
Yes.
So
I saw that as well. That was bad. That was a bad call.
Mitchell Melton, my friend. Mitchell Melton, another 4-star.
Yeah, well, back to the Mookie Cooper thing real quick. I also saw that he enrolled in the transfer portal like as soon as Emeka Egbuka committed, which was part of the 2020 run recruiting class. So that might have something to do with it too. But yeah, Mitchell Melton was the number 11. He was rated as an athlete coming out, but I think everybody kind of knew he was going to be an outside linebacker. He played both linebacker and defensive end as a freshman, but he missed huge chunks of those 2021, 2022. His best season was in 2023, but he still only had like 3 tackles. He had 2 tackles against Western Kentucky. They were both behind the line of the scrimmage. And then he had a tackle for loss against Purdue. So he looked pretty good against those games. I remember those games. He did play 1 game as a true freshman in 2020. This was a guy that everybody was always waiting to pop. Never did. I think it's pretty easy to blame injuries, though. He was also kind of a tweener. He just announced his intentions to transfer to Virginia. He was a guy that wasn't quite big enough to play defensive end, but wasn't quite athletic to play linebacker. But again, I would put him in I wouldn't call him a bust. I would put him in the what if category with Julian Fleming.
No, that's absolutely fair. Just beneath him, we got Joe Royer from Cincinnati Elder.
Yeah, gave this guy how many points did you give him? 0, right?
0.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's a transfer. This is another one that I blame Ryan Day for. I put him in the same category as Ryan Watts. Joe Royer, he was redshirt as a freshman. He played in 14 games. He only got caught 4 balls at Ohio State, and then he transferred to Cincinnati. Yeah. He transferred in large part due to, I believe, his mother passed away, and he's from Cincinnati. So I think it was less about not playing, and it was more about moving home, closer to home. Yeah. This guy's really talented. I think he was first team All Big 12 this past year at Cincinnati. He had over 500 yards receiving.
Yeah,
Joe Royer, Joe Royer would have started. Joe Royer would have been the number 1 tight end at Ohio State this past year.
No, he had, like I said, 500 plus yards, 50 balls, 4 touchdowns in the Cincinnati offense. Absolutely.
Yeah, dude. It's a bummer. I think a couple of them went over 50 yards. He was a big seam buster. Another injury-prone guy, Court Williams, the 13th best recruit in Ohio State's class, outside linebacker, 4-star. He was hurt 2020 and 2021. 2022, he played in 6 games. And played in 11. Oh, I know he played in 11 games in 2021. Is that right? And he started.
Yeah, he played in them. Yes.
Special teams, though.
Yes.
Right.
You are correct. You are correct.
He started the Rose Bowl game against Utah as a linebacker. That was his first collegiate start. And then he also had a pretty good game against Michigan State that year as well. And then he had 6 tackles against Utah. He had a good game against Utah, if I remember right? I wrote down his stats and I messed it all up and accidentally deleted it. But yeah, Court Williams, I put him in the what if category. Remember too, they kind of jerked him around too. He was always hurt, and then he was gaining weight to play line, he lost weight to play safety, and then they moved him down to linebacker, then they moved him back to safety. But a part of it was that he was never healthy. So when he was hurt, somebody was playing better than him. So they played, you know what I mean? Like, but if he was healthy, I think this guy would have been he would have been a dog, in my opinion.
I would agree. That was the outlook for me as well. I thought he was going to be a stud.
Yeah. Damn shame. Now here's the guy, Cameron Martinez, cornerback, 4-star recruit. He started Ohio State. Had 3 starts at Ohio State, and they weren't garbage starts. Like there was a point, the Cam Martinez hype for the spring game, for the spring period. Cam Martinez had a lot of hype. If you listen to podcasts back from that time, 2020, 2021. They're going to be talking about Cam Martinez a lot. Cam Martinez had a very nice NIL deal with On It. He actually he had a couple of nice NIL deals. Like, people thought Cam Martinez was going to be the next dude. This was a Michigan State Player of the Year twice.
Michigan, twice.
Yeah, he played at quarterback. I know you saw what I saw. A lot of if you Google, like if you go back and look at the recruiting reports on Cam Martinez, like the little scouting reports everybody did, a lot of people thought he was going to be playing wide receiver. A lot of people thought he'd be playing on the opposite side of the ball. Matter of fact, when he entered the transfer portal and finally went to Boston College, that was the thought, that they were going to play him both ways, that he was going to be like a Travis Hunter type of player. So he's super athletic, dude. This is a guy, he was super athletic. I'm not going to put him in the what if category. He was just a whiff, and he wasn't good. He wasn't very good at Boston College either. He started at nickel back, played in the slot at Boston College, but he wasn't like shutting dudes down. He's just raw. He's one of those guys. He's a freak athlete. They put him at quarterback in high school, and he just got away. He just did whatever he wanted. And then when we got to college, they were like, "All right, dude, time to learn how to play a position." And he was like, I don't know how to do that. And I think that's kind of what happened with him. But they tried, man. They pushed that dude. I mean, you can go back, you can watch a lot of games, and he played 25 games at Ohio State before transferring out. He saw action 25 games. They tried, dude. They really tried. So he's a really interesting one. It would have been interesting to see if maybe we had a better defensive backs coach. I know at the time Kerry Coombs was running the defense as a whole, and didn't have enough time to spend on those guys. But he's not doing anything for Boston College either. So what do I know? He just whiffed.
Yeah, no, I was a very much a part of that Cam Martinez hype train when he was coming through. Like, wow, two-time Michigan State Player of the Year. I mean, I was all for it. He looked when he got on the field physically, playing on the secondary, he looked the part as well, and it just didn't flourish.
Yeah. Some people saw some people say, well, maybe he would have had a better career if he played wide receiver. I don't know if that's true either, because he's as small as Mookie Cooper. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he could, and I don't think he was quick enough. I don't know. I think that cornerback's probably where he belongs. He's just not good enough he's just not technically sound enough to make it work. 15th best player, Mayan Williams, running back, 3-star. This is our first 3-star we're going as. As a true freshman in 2020, he played in 4 games, got 10 carries. As a sophomore, he split carries with Travion Henderson, got over 500 yards rushing. And then in 2022, that's kind of when things started to fall apart health-wise.
Yes.
For Mayan Williams. Did I cover it? Is that the Mayan Williams story?
That is the Mayan Williams story. How many points did you give Mayan Williams?
Let's look. He got a 1-pointer.
Okay, we're in the same ballpark. He was 13 all Big Ten. Yep.
What year was he 13 all Big Ten? Was that that 2021 year?
Yep, 21. That sophomore season.
Yeah. And he just kind of got beat up. He's in the CFL now with the Toronto Argonauts.
Argonauts, yep.
Yeah, hopefully a healthy Mayan Williams is a good Mayan Williams. Just got beat up. It is what it is. The 16th best player, Jacob Cohen, defensive end, 3-star. Did he play at all? He played 5. He saw action in 5 games in 2021. Didn't see action in any games in 2020. Had 3 tackles as a redshirt freshman before transferring to North Carolina, where he is still not playing very much. So
no,
I don't think
I got him as a 3-star transfer to UNC. No points.
Yes. Darian Henry, another big Ohio. Yes. Darian Henry Young, I apologize. 3-star, played in 2 games. Played 2 games.
Yeah.
He actually played in the season opener in 2021 against Nebraska. Did he start that game?
I don't think so.
No, but he played against Nebraska and Rutgers in 2021. After redshirting in 2020. He played in 2 games in 2020 as well. But I think in 2021, the reason those games are notable is because he played like before they were blowouts. I think he got like meaningful minutes.
Okay.
But it just never happened for him. He was a tweener kind of guy. I'm not going to say he was a whiff. He was a 3-star. Everybody kind of knew what he was. He was just kind of a tweener between defensive end and defensive tackle. He transferred to Kentucky, dealt with injuries for 2 years, entered the transfer portal, and he's at Coastal Carolina. So maybe if he gets healthy, he can be that edge rusher everybody thought he could be. But he was kind of too. He was not quite athletic to play defensive end. It was too small to play defensive tackle. Was the kind of the deal with him.
Yeah, I had to squeeze in both Kentucky and Coastal Carolina's logo on there. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you? Oh, I got. Let me minimize so you can see it. Very nice. Yeah. Very nice.
The next one, a little diamond in the rough, a little diamond in the weeds here. Josh Fryer. Love some Josh Fryer.
Yeah, big fan of Josh Fryer. He was actually listed as a center, dude. As a center.
Yes.
In the string of zeros, he actually gets 3 points, right?
Yes, he certainly does.
Yeah. Redshirt as a freshman. Then he played 12 games the next year before tearing his ACL. And then the next year in 2022, he got a start against Indiana at guard. And then the rest was kind of history. The next year, he started at left tackle and was first team All Big Ten in 2023. And then obviously he was the left tackle again, he was the right tackle year in the national championship season. So a hell of a career for someone that was rated this low and projected to be a center.
Projected coming in as a center, dealing with injuries, end up leaving, saying, "Hey, I was a all-conference selection. Hey, I was a national champion. And though my name wasn't called on draft day, I am right now wearing a NFL uniform with the Cardinals."
Yeah.
So,
it's almost like you want to give more points because this was a huge
I do. I always do. And it hurts to only give him 3. It's nice to see this little diamond in the rough here. We've got to elaborate here on the next guy, though, a little bit. Give me a little rundown on Grant.
So this was another guy. There's a couple guys from this class that were recruited basically just because they're size. When you start to talk about these 3-star guys, they were guys that were. I mean, obviously they were dominant in high school, but there was a reason they're 3-stars and not 4-stars because they were missing something. This guy was very raw. I can't remember if it was him or Leroux. I can't remember if it was him or Leroux. One of these guys was like 250 pounds when they were like a senior in high school or something, or junior in high school, and then they gained like 60 pounds in an off season and then grew like 6 inches, and they were like, "Oh my God, we gotta have him." but he couldn't play. He wasn't very good. But yeah, Toutant. I don't know how to pronounce. But he redshirted his first year, and then just kind of sat the bench. And then he elected to not play that extra COVID year and went straight into finance. What's the real world, which I admire, bro.
I read. Well, I mean, he's not the only one, but that jumped into the finance field. But I read into a little bit on Grant Tuteau, and it was essentially a way of, working the roster, how many rostered players and offensive linemen the Buckeye team had that year. And he went ahead and kind of just chalked it up and said, hey, I'm kind of the odd man out here. I'm going to, and air quotes, medically retire here is what I was reading up on.
I apologize. You were correct. I was completely wrong. LaRoe was the one that went into finance.
He's the finance pro. Yes.
Toutant was the medical red shirt or the medical retired guy.
They saw the massive, individuals they had to play at the offensive line. He was definitely the odd man out, and he kind of just like, hey, this one's for the team, this one's for the university. It was a phantom medical injury, what have you, that forced retirement.
Yes, which isn't uncommon. You'll see that a lot. But it was Toutant that gained all that weight. He gained 170 pounds in total in high school. And I think he was 6'7", 6'8", so he was seen as a physical freak. It was worth taking a swing. Whatever, not every guy's gonna be a star. So I feel like I don't feel like he's gonna have 0 points on our thing, but that's not a bust. That's where you want your 0 points, right? Some guy who's just sitting the bench doing his thing, not a guy who's leaving, right?
He's not what Athlon thought would be Ohio State's next gunslinger in Jack Miller.
Exactly. Yeah. The next guy, Jack Miller. So this is kind of misleading because Jack Miller's listed as the 20th best recruit in this recruiting class by 24/7 Sports. He was also listed as a 3-star. If you go back and you listen to podcasts from that era, or even magazines from that era, a lot of people list him as a 4-star. So this is kind of misleading. A lot of people had him as the better quarterback over CJ Stroud, like the better, not necessarily. I think CJ Stroud was always ranked as the better quarterback recruit, but Jack Miller was kind of seen as maybe a possible better fit. Because I think that a lot of people thought he threw the ball a little bit better. And he did. I believe he got in the game as a true freshman against Nebraska in 2020.
Yep, I remember that number 9 on the jersey getting in there. You're right.
Yeah. So he was it was not, CJ Stroud was not the backup. These guys were kind of taking turns, if I remember right. And then the next year, CJ Stroud kind of just beat him out, and that was it. He saw action in 4 games for the Scarlet and Gray before transferring to Florida. He was competing for a starting job at Florida. I think he got hurt, and then Graham Mertz kind of ran away with it. And then the next thing you know, Jack Miller medically retired. But he was kind of a big gift for Florida. If you go back and look at some of those articles, listen to some of those podcasts, he signed some pretty He got some decent. Him and Taraja Mitchell both left for Florida the same offseason, and both of them got some pretty heavy NIL money to do that. So Jack Miller, he's going to be listed as a number 20 here, but that deserves an asterisk because you guys heard it. That was word for word what came out of Athlon and Lindy's, and he was mentioned. He was mentioned as a dog, and they're not the only ones that said that.
You are absolutely right. Now we're in here. Now's where we get we got a little weirdness here. We've got a draft pick down here, and we've got a finance pro that we talked about, and a Toledo transfer. So go right ahead.
Well, the next one is Legend Cabezos, and this guy was another guy. I would put him in the same category as Cam Martinez, only like a little less. But Legend Cabezos, he's listed as a 3-star recruit under 24/7 Sports. But if you go to a lot of recruiting services had him as a 4-star. I think if you look him up on ESPN right now, he's listed as a 4-star. And the reason for this is because he went to some recruiting camps and lit it the fuck up. The dude was a freak athlete. Okay. 2021, he saw action in 11 games. He saw the most action against Michigan State, where he actually played 24 snaps and had a pass breakup and a tackle. He played some pretty heavy snaps against Akron and Oregon, and then he played some heavy snaps against Minnesota that year as well, right? So that's pretty good. 2020, his freshman season, he saw his debut against Northwestern in the Big Ten championship. So this is obviously a guy that they were shoving out there, right? This was a guy too that they didn't know where they were going to play. And they played safety, cornerback, safety, cornerback, safety, cornerback. I think he was a guy that was just really, really a freak athletically, but just not a great football player. He transferred to North Carolina, did nothing for 2 seasons, and then he just transferred to Michigan State this past offseason, where I don't think he's going to be grabbing headlines there either. This is the Cam Martinez thing is different because Cam Martinez was a really good football player. And we talked about Gatorade Player of the Year as well, twice. Legend wasn't like that. Legend was just a pure athlete. I'm sure he was a better high school football player than you and I, but there is a little bit of a difference there. But a lot of people had him as a 4-star.
No, absolutely. Jacob James, the ugliest way to spell Jacob with that K. 3-star, didn't get a whole lot of play, and now is he still at Toledo?
Yeah, he's gonna be playing. He started at Toledo last year too. He'll be back at Toledo this year. This guy, I can actually kind of feel bad for him because he probably should have left earlier. He was at Ohio State for 4 years. He saw action 30 games. He played every game in 2023, on special teams. So he saw a lot of action. He just never really got a chance. But he's okay at Toledo. He starts. He's okay. Yeah. So I kind of feel bad for him. I don't think he's good enough to play at Ohio State. So that was probably a good move, but he probably should have left earlier.
He sat around and lingered for quite a while when some people, I would assume there have been people in his camp saying, hey man, go and enjoy your college experience and get some snaps.
Yeah. And then the next player, this is the last player on the list that gets any points at all. He gets 2 points. Ty Hamilton, who was listed as a defensive end 3-star. He played as a freshman, not a lot, but he saw some action against Nebraska and Rutgers. A lot of these guys did because of their blowouts. Remember, that was the COVID shortened season too. So a lot of these guys probably would have played a little bit more, but they didn't get a chance to. I think that also kind of played, if you looked at like Legend Cavazos and Cameron Martinez, that probably also played to the lack of development that they had, is that the season was so shortened, if you guys remember.
Yeah, the 6 games,
Yeah, on the off season, all of it. These guys got no chance to prep. In 2021, he got his first start against Northwestern, where he got 3 tackles. 2022, he finished with 19 tackles. 2023, he started, was finally named All Big Ten. He was an honorable mention All Big Ten. And then 2024 is obviously where everybody, national championship team was named Reese's Senior Bowl midseason All-American. So Ty Hamilton had a great Ohio State career. It's a shame he's only going to get 2 points. Probably should have been drafted higher, but it is what it is. But that absolute, I would say that is the absolute diamond in the rough, baby.
No, without question. To be this low on an Ohio, and don't get me wrong, to say you're this low on a recruiting class is one thing, but to say you're this low on an Ohio State recruiting class, and you're still sitting down here and you're still getting drafted in the 5th round. I mean, hey, it's a feel good story.
Yeah, for sure. Next guy, this is the finance bro, Trey LaRoe.
Finance bro.
Offensive tackle from Norwalk, Ohio.
Yep.
Okay, best known for their brief stint on 90 Day Fiancé. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that show.
Ooh, look at you.
No, dude, Norwalk's super small town. This is a guy who was just huge. I think he was like 6'8". He was like
he was a big boy.
Yeah, when he graduated high school. So they took a swing. He played a little bit in 2021, played against Maryland, Indiana, Penn State, got some snaps. Didn't see any action in 2020. And then he used all of his eligibility. He had 1 year left because of COVID, and he said, no, I'm good. I'm going to go to get a real job now, which was a good move. I appreciate that. I respect that. So I don't think this is a miss. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He was a giant, huge guy that played a little bit. What I mean? Like, he did exactly what you expect a 6'8", 330-pound guy from Ohio to do.
No, I respect the hell out of it. Without question.
Yeah.
We got 2 more. We got 2 more coming up in this recruiting class. We've got Jake Siebert.
I only have 1 more. Yeah, Jake. Jake Siebert, kicker, 3-star. Didn't play. 2020 in 2020. He played in 2020, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he hit that field goal against Alabama, and then he was just kind of done, and then he transferred to Northern Illinois, right? That's the Siebert career arc. Yes. Yes, just a kind of a flash in the pan, struggled, and then left.
Yeah, and my last, I got Patrick Gerd, tight end, Cincinnati. Yes, that's the last one.
Oh yes, he walk on.
Yes.
Walk on tight end, still there. No, he's done now, but he was there last year. He kind of played that like H-back role. He saw some meaningful snaps. And he was like a 0-star recruit, right? He wasn't really like, he was just like me and you walking in, right?
I've got him as a 0 as well.
Yeah, I think he was just like, local kid. They tried out. He was a big kid, a good frame. But yeah, man, there were some times where he got in over G. Scott on some of those critical blocking plays. So that is pretty impressive for a walk. I think he eventually did earn a scholarship. I think he earned a scholarship this past year, right?
I think you were absolutely right. He did receive a scholarship. Josh, your point total for the 2020 recruiting class?
101.
101. Okay. And our only discrepancy was that CJ Stroud. So that makes sense. The 2020 recruiting class, 101 points of that 2020 recruiting class, 5 selections in the NFL draft, 8 individuals from this recruiting class are currently in the NFL. We have 4 All-American selections from this 2020 recruiting class. 13 of the 26 entered the transfer portal, and 10 all Big Ten selections.
So it's going to be really interesting to do the 2019 class. I just glanced at it. I don't want to because I didn't want to ruin anything for this week, but I just don't think that this recruiting class was lived up to the hype, dude. I mean, you had 3 guys that were absolutely some of the best to ever do it, right? Paris Johnson, JSN, CJ Stroud, and then you had a bunch of guys that were okay, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm evaluating this recruiting class too, I'm looking at the 5 and 4 stars. Obviously, Mayan Williams and Josh Fryer and Ty Hamilton, those are home runs because they're 3 stars and they played in meaningful minutes. But I'm looking at okay, what about the top guys, right? And you had 3 guys that were good, and then you had Cody Simon, who was okay, Luke Whippler, who was okay, left early, Latham Ranson, who was okay. But then you got some guys that just outright sucked. Julian Fleming did nothing. G. Scott, it's debatable, but
I think one of the biggest takeaways from anybody, any fan or any outside looking in is just the fact that if you were to look at Ohio State's highest graded recruits coming in, Julian Fleming has to be top 1 or 2. Would you agree?
Like in history?
In history.
Yeah, dude. He's probably still the highest. Well, no, because Jeremiah Smith. I don't know, dude. I bet there's 10 recruiting sites out there. I bet in one of those recruiting sites,
some of those outlets probably have him above. They have him number 1 all time.
Dude, they have to. I was reading Julian Fleming's scouting reports. This is not the rise and the career arc of Julian Fleming is something that you and I and Donovan have been discussing for 3 years. That's how impactful the rise and fall of Julian Fleming. When we had Mike on the show, it was a constant conversation. Because that's why I didn't want to put all my faith in Jeremiah Smith as a freshman, because the hype surrounding Julian Fleming, and you don't have to take our word for it. Go just YouTube 2020 recruiting class, and there'll be 10 guys doing videos recapping it, or do better yet, find ones from actually 2020, and they rant and rave about Julian Fleming. And it's so funny listen to some of these guys now, because you'll listen to some of these guys. Jeremiah, I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about Jeremiah Smith, because I was trying to compare the narrative. And the narrative, in my eyes, the narrative is so similar, dude. It's so similar. A lot of people are saying Jeremiah Smith is faster. That's the biggest difference, right? There was some tendency with Julian Fleming. He doesn't have that elite speed, but he has that physicality that overcomes that elite speed. But all the comparisons are Julio Jones. Okay.
Yeah.
You saw that, right? That wasn't just me. And it wasn't just one site. It was like 3 sites.
This is definitely something you didn't fathom.
No, dude. Yeah, I just want to be very clear, right? And those same sites, so a lot of those same sites are comparing Jeremiah Smith to Julio Jones. Now they're calling Jeremiah Smith faster, but like I said, it's such a similar amount of hype. But I'll listen to these guys that were giving that hype, and then I'll listen to the podcast about when they're recapping Jeremiah Smith, and they'll say, well, Julian Fleming was different because Julian Fleming came from an offense in Pennsylvania that relied on the run and yada, 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 and he wasn't as refined. Bro, fuck you. Dude, you know what you said. Because you can't say that 4 years later. You didn't say that 4 years ago. That's not fair. That's not fair. That might be true. That might be the difference. And that's how you should approach it, though. It's like, well, I think that in hindsight, what the issue with Julian Fleming was this, right, compared to Jeremiah. But even that's not really fair to Julian Fleming, because Julian Fleming got beat the fuck up. He got beat the fuck up. That's what it boils down to. Julian Fleming was not that bad. He started the Big Ten championship game as a true freshman. Okay? Yeah. The guy was good. The guy was okay, right? Worst case scenario, he should have been like I don't know. We talked KJ Hill, right? He could have had KJ Hill broke a bunch of records. That's different.
Yeah, he did.
KJ Hill was not really the guy, right? There was always like another guy that was like more athletic and it's more explosive, right? But he could have carved out a nice little niche as an Ohio State receiver. I don't know. It's just unfortunate, and it's funny how people just kind of ignore it. The NFL draft, you don't get to do that, right? Because people call you out for it. Even you can, but people call you out for it more often, right? Like you and I are going to remember the conversations we had about the NFL draft 3 years from now. But the recruiting, there's so few conversations about it. You just kind of, everybody talks about the top 5 guys, and then just kind of go, and it's kind of all consensus. There's not a lot of argument. And then just kind of no one brings it up. That's why it doesn't really come up a lot, because everybody thought Julian Fleming was going to be the next Julio Jones. So no one wants to call each other out on it because they all said it.
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime you bring it up, is anybody that's brought up, it's a kind of thing.
Yeah,
that I don't.
Well, I didn't say that.
Well, you find that on paper. So we broke down the 2020 class. We're going to go get into the 2019, 2018. We're going to continue. We're going to go far back as we possibly can, as much as there's information out there, as long as we've been rating these recruits. We spoke earlier. We're going to continue to come back next week. We're going to hit any Buckeye news. You brought up a good thing. I some of these what ifs, some of these hypotheticals, some of these scenarios, we've had, multiple weeks we've delved into, what if of Julian Fleming. You brought up a phenomenal touching point. We were talking about Bill O'Brien and quarterbacks. It's not technically Ohio State related, but we've got some stuff in the chamber for some puff pieces. Also, you and I, we're firm believers that the day you start giving up the things you love, that's when you start getting old. You and I are both still avid sports card collectors. And we discussed possibly bringing up some Ohio State sports card segments. How's that sound?
Yeah, dude, you guys, if you guys are in the chat, we're pre-recording this. If you guys want us to try to make like a special episode where we talk about, obviously we don't want to, we want to talk about some mainstream cards too, but Chris and I being such, violent Ohio State fans, we have some weird ones. So I just showed Chris my awesome Tate Martell that I just got. Right, and I got a couple interesting other, Butler Binotti for the New York, New Jersey Hitman XFL card. Mike Furay. I got a Jeff Cothran Orlando Predators AFL card. If you guys want to see stuff like that, and maybe we price them out and look at them and the stories behind them, and kind of like maybe like more like specialized podcasts about those. Maybe we bring on a card shop owner. Let us know if you guys are interested in hearing that part of the hobby, or hearing about the hobby as well as the game. Maybe we'll do something like that.
No, I could see a nice fiver to intro the show. We're doing, Buckeyes by the number, by the episode number. I wouldn't mind seeing some cardboard minutes, if you would. We'll think of we'll workshop something if that's something our Ohio State of Mind faithful want. Next week we'll be back regular time, Monday evening. We might start flirting with a little bit of time change to get this Ohio State of Mind podcast content to you a little earlier. But we're gonna check it, put this out. It's gonna drop tomorrow. Please, anything you guys have, you want to critique any of these players in the recruiting class, maybe some of our scoring system, please drop the comments in there. We are going to check them. We're going to go ahead and revisit those next week live on air. But Josh, I love looking back at some of these old recruits, and I love looking at the context of what 2020, the outlook was for the Ohio State recruiting class and the national recruiting class.
Well, you buy into these guys. When we get the older classes that we cover, I think the more emotionally attached we're going to be too, because we're going to be remember certain guys when we're kids. Like, man, I thought that guy was going to be like Gary Berry. I'll never forget seeing Gary Berry when I was a kid, thinking that guy was the greatest football player of all time. You talked about Mike Doss last week on our phone call. It'll be interesting to reflect on those recruiting classes if we ever get that far. But yeah, definitely let us know your guys' opinion on times. We're going to have to make some changes to the time of the podcast here. So definitely give us your recommendations on that. Let us know what you think about the scoring system. We'll probably ignore those recommendations, but we'd love to hear. No, I'm joking. We'll take those in consideration for sure. Should we take recommendations on maybe skipping ahead? Like if you guys want specific, I would prefer to just go in order, like take 2020, do 2019 next week. But if someone wants to recommend one, maybe we'll take that in consideration to skip. Is that up to you? What do you think, Chris?
I like to keep it in descending order, but believe me,
cool.
we're gonna if there's a certain recruiting class you want to hear, hey, stay tuned, baby. We'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. It'll be easier that way anyway.
Hey, anything you guys want to see, drop it in the comments. We're going to go ahead and look at those comments. We're going to, we're going to touch on those next week. Next week, we'll be looking at the 2019 class and any and all Buckeye news. And maybe we'll whip out a little bit of cardboard and find, you talking about, all these hypes going back and looking at some of these players. I mean, shit, you just whipped out a Tate Martell card.
Yeah, so, but then I probably overpaid for.
It's a possibility.
I got this little beauty too.
Let's see. Ooh,
the new transfer from West Virginia. Got that baby for $1. Then I got that little Shaun Wade High School action.
Speaking of, you got to meet new running back from West Virginia, CJ.
CJ Donaldson, dude, he was such a cool guy, man. He was such a cool guy. I had him sign a West Virginia helmet. Let me whip it out.
Is that Cat a Wizard on your shirt?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So I had him sign a West Virginia. Obviously, I had him sign an Ohio State helmet too, but I got him on a West Virginia helmet. And he goes, "Man, I love those West Virginia uniforms. What was your favorite uniform?" I was like, "Oh, you want to hear from me? You want to hear my fashion sense?" And I'm an old guy, so I said, "Well, I like the original Pat White, Terrell Sutton, yellow stripe blue jersey."
Mm-hmm.
Like that helmet. That's my favorite West Virginia helmet. And he goes, "Dude, those All Blacks, bro." He's like, "Go back and play college football 25. Check out those All Blacks, bro. Those were the best, dude." I was like, "Damn, you like that?" And I told him, I said, I know that they had the American flag one too." And he's like, "Yeah, we wore that one." It was just kind of funny listening to him reminisce about the jerseys specifically. Just a super nice guy, down to earth, humble. You like to see that. I talked to a lot of these guys on a pretty consistent basis, and he's one of the nicer ones. He was talking to me, dude. He was talking my ear off. I had to leave. He was super cool. And he also said the Terry kid that just transferred in from West Virginia said that guy's a dog. He said that the kid was looking to transfer back home, and CJ told him, "Dude, do it." CJ's having a great time at Ohio State, having a lot of fun at Ohio State, making a lot of money. So he's very excited to be here.
I like to. I'm going to bring this up and end on this. I'm a guy that's a one jersey a year kind of guy. I go and spend that money. Nice. This year I went. It's baseball season, so I went and bought a throwback 99 All-Star Game Pedro Martinez jersey. I am excited. Travion Henderson is in rookie minicamp with the Patriots. He gets to keep his Ohio State number 32 with the Patriots. Cool. They've announced that. Are you looking to buy any player on the Browns this year, Josh?
I thought about dabbling into Quisha. You know me, man. I got so many jerseys now. I don't really go out of my way to buy jerseys unless they're either A, autographed, or B, super on sale. Like if I find a good Joe Flacco stitched in Ravens jersey at Gabe's for $15, ooh, I get the chills. Matt Corral Panthers jersey for $5 at Ross's. Sign me up. Like that gets me harder than like a new Quinn shot. The guys that we're talking about. I can't remember the last jersey I bought, man. I just can't remember, dude. But I get more stoked about that. And then I hang on to. I like to buy Ohio State guys and hanging on to them. Yeah, I told you about the stitched in Cleveland Browns Brian Hartline jersey that I bought at Goodwill for $5. Beautiful jersey. Some angry fan sold it back, nice and clean. And I got it autographed by Brian, and he wrote "Go Fins" because it's orange. I'm like, oh,
nice. I am a guy that it's my one out when I'm watching the games and I'm pissed and I say, "Why did we do that? Why did we do this?" My wife comes to me and says, "We? Where's we? Are you on the team?" I said, "No, I bought a fucking $200 jersey. I'm part of ownership." So that's my end every year. But no, I think the last nice thrifted jersey was this last year. I went to Goodwill here in Tacoma, Washington, got me a nice Reebok Randy Moss Patriots jersey. So
very cool. That's the guy. That's the kind of shit I'm into, bro. Yeah.
Such a win. But we will be back next Monday. We're going to talk Buckeye news. We're going to talk the 2019 recruiting class. Maybe show off some Buckeyes. I mean, it's May. We're not going to see any of our draftees until the end of June to July when it comes to new printed cards. But we're gonna show off a little something. We'll see if you guys like that. But we will be back next week. Anything on the recruiting class, drop it in the comments. We're going to address it next week. I'm Chris. You can find me at CRunning15 on X. Josh?
Yeah, man. Follow me on X at Josh Keatley16. I am uploading these episodes fairly consistent. One episode. I'm really going out of my way to try to upload these on the Spotify. I heard some of your guys' concerns about YouTube not being able to play it, yada yada yada, while you're on the run and shit like that. So I'm going to try to be more consistent on uploading these to Spotify. I promise you.
Love it. Well, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. Also, if the intro and all this is too long for you to keep running through Spotify, we'll cut it. Just give us some feedback, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But as always, I'm Chris. He's Josh. This is the Ohio State of Mind podcast. We will see you next week. And of course, above all else, go Bucks.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, you shithead. Happy Mother's Day to the moms out there. Ohio State of Mind podcast. Go Bucks.